Let's start with a quiet truth. In a world that never stops moving, in a life filled with endless notifications, obligations, and open browser tabs, your greatest power isn't your ability to do more. It's your ability to do one thing: to be here, fully, completely. This isn't another book about hustling harder. This is a conversation about going deeper. Because the most profound results in your work, in your relationships, in your peace of mind aren't born from frantic activity. They're born from focused attention, from the discipline of depth. Think about the last time you felt truly satisfied, not just busy, not just tired, but satisfied. It might have been finishing a project you were proud of, a conversation where you felt completely heard, a walk where you noticed the color of the leaves. In that moment, you weren't scattered. You weren't pulled in 10 directions. You were present. You were deep. This experience is becoming rare, and because it's rare, it's becoming your most valuable asset. The ability to dive below the churning surface of daily noise to a place of clarity, creativity, and control. That is what we're going to explore. This is an audiobook about building a life that isn't just long on tasks, but deep in meaning. A life where you are the author of your attention, not the victim of your distractions. We are going to move, chapter by chapter, from understanding why depth feels so difficult to building the rituals that make it natural. You'll hear real stories, not of perfection, but of practice. We'll look at the science of your brain, why it resists this, and how it thrives on it. And we'll lay down simple, powerful steps, not for a dramatic one-day overhaul, but for a steady, intentional shift. A shift from wide and shallow to narrow and deep. It starts not with adding another tool to your belt, but with putting down the tools you're juggling. It starts with a single, focused breath. Take that breath with me now. In and out. Where is your mind right now? Is it here with my voice? Or is it already tugging at tomorrow's problem or yesterday's conversation? That tug is the current we swim against every day. And learning to anchor yourself, to choose one point of focus and give yourself to it, that is the discipline we will cultivate. It is the quiet path to becoming unstoppable, not because you are louder than the world, but because you are more grounded within it. This is the discipline of depth. And it begins in this moment with your choice to listen. Truly listen. Chapter 1. The Myth of Multitasking and the Power of a Single Point. Let me tell you about a man named Leo. Leo was a master carpenter I met years ago. His workshop smelled of sawdust and linseed oil. On the day I visited, he was beginning a dining table, a beautiful, simple thing made from a single slab of walnut. I expected a whirlwind of activity. I thought I'd see him measuring, then rushing to the saw, then sanding, all in a flurry of efficiency. But that's not what happened. He walked to the slab of wood, and he just looked at it. He ran his hand along the grain. He spent a full 5 minutes just seeing the wood. Then he picked up his measuring tape. His entire world in that moment was the tape, the wood, and the pencil line he needed to make. There was no radio playing, no phone in his pocket, no glancing at the clock. When he measured, he wasn't just measuring. He was in a conversation with the wood. He was listening to what it needed. Then, and only then, did he move to the saw. His posture changed. His breathing slowed. The saw became an extension of his arm. The scream of the blade through the walnut wasn't a harsh noise. It was the sound of a single decisive intention being fulfilled. He wasn't multitasking. He was unitasking. He was performing a sequence of deep, singular points of focus. And the quality of his work wasn't just in the joints or the finish. It was in the presence he brought to each step. The table wasn't assembled. It was revealed through a series of devoted acts. Now, think about your own mind this morning. From the moment you woke up, how many points of focus have you had? The notification on your phone, the half-listened to news, the email you skimmed while on a call. Our modern life often feels like being that frantic imaginary version of Leo, trying to measure, saw, and sand all at once. We call this multitasking. We wear it like a badge of honor. But here is the psychological truth, proven by decades of neuroscience. Your brain cannot focus on two things at once. What it does is switch rapidly from task A to task B and back again. And every time it switches, it pays a tax, a cognitive tax. Scientists call it the switching cost. It's the mental energy and time lost as your brain disengages from one thing, reorients itself, and engages with the next. You might feel faster, but you are thinking slower. You are making more errors. You are draining your mental fuel tank with the constant starting and stopping. The myth of multitasking is this. It promises efficiency, but it delivers fragmentation. It promises productivity, but it creates a lingering sense of anxiety. The feeling that nothing is ever truly finished because your attention was never truly given. Leo the carpenter understood something we have forgotten. Quality is never the result of divided attention. The seamlessness of the tabletop came from the seamlessness of his focus. So let's bring this home to you. Think of a task you do often. Maybe it's writing an email. Maybe it's having a conversation with your child. Maybe it's planning your week. Now, picture doing that task the way Leo worked his wood. You are not also scrolling. You are not also planning your reply. You are not also thinking about the next thing. Your entire sensory world, your sight, your hearing, your thought, converges on that one point. How does that feel? In your imagination, it might feel slow. It might even feel uncomfortable. That's because we've trained our minds to crave the buzz of switching, the ping of novelty, the false sense of progress that comes from checking off small, shallow tasks. But in that imagined, focused state, there is also a calm, a clarity, a sense of command. That calm is not an illusion. It is your brain functioning as it was designed to. It is the sound of the cognitive tax being lifted. The power of a single point of focus is not just about producing better work, it is about experiencing your own life more vividly. When you read a book with a single focus, you enter the world the author built. When you listen to a friend with a single focus, you hear the meaning beneath their words. When you work on a problem with a single focus, solutions rise to the surface from a place your busy mind could never access. Multitasking scatters your energy. Single-pointed focus gathers it, it compounds it. This is the foundation of everything we will build on, the unwavering understanding that depth begins with a choice to do one thing, and then to do the next one thing, not all things at once. The journey to a deeper life doesn't start with a massive overhaul. It starts with a single, quiet decision. For the next hour, or even the next 10 minutes, choose one thing and be there, fully, for it. Let the other tabs in your browser wait. Let the phone face down. Let the mental checklist be still. In that space, you are not falling behind. You are building your foundation, one solid, focused point at a time. He wasn't just measuring wood, he was seeing it. There was no radio playing, no phone in his pocket, no glance at the clock. His entire consciousness had flowed into the tip of his pencil, the edge of the tape. When he finally made the cut with his saw, the sound wasn't a harsh screech. It was the clean, decisive sound of a single intention being fulfilled. That table wasn't just built, it was revealed through a series of deep, singular acts of attention. Now, let's contrast that with a morning you might recognize. You wake up. Before your feet even touch the floor, your hand finds your phone. A swipe. Emails, news headlines, social updates, a torrent of points of focus, each demanding a microsecond of your mind. You're planning your day in the shower, half listening to a podcast while making coffee, skimming an article as you eat, your mind already leaping ahead to the first meeting. It feels normal. It feels efficient. We've even given it a proud name, multitasking. But here is the quiet neurological truth your brain knows even if you've forgotten. You cannot think two thoughts at once. What you're doing is not multitasking, it is task switching. And every single switch carries a cost, a cognitive tax. Think of your focus not as a spotlight, but as a master craftsman at his bench. Every time he's pulled away to answer a question, to check a notification, to turn and look at something else, he must lay down his tools. When he returns, he needs time to pick them up again, to find his place, to re-engage his muscle memory. A little bit of heat leaves the forge. A little bit of momentum is lost. That is your mind. Every switch, from writing a report to checking a text, from listening to a colleague to thinking about dinner, forces your brain to perform a tiny, exhausting shutdown and reboot. The cost is measured in time, in mental energy, and most profoundly, in the quality of your thought. The power of a single point of focus is not just about producing better work, it is about experiencing your own life more vividly. When you read a book with a single focus, you enter the world the author built. When you listen to a friend with a single focus, you hear the meaning beneath their words. When you work on a problem with a single focus, solutions rise to the surface from a place your busy mind could never access. Multitasking scatters your energy. Single-pointed focus gathers it, it compounds it. This is the foundation of everything we will build on. The unwavering understanding that depth begins with a choice to do one thing, and then to do the next one thing, not all things at once. The journey to a deeper life doesn't start with a massive overhaul. It starts with a single, quiet decision. For the next hour, or even the next 10 minutes, choose one thing and be there, fully, for it. Let the other tabs in your browser wait. Let the phone face down. Let the mental checklist be still. In that space, you are not falling behind. You are building your foundation, one solid, focused point at a time. He wasn't just measuring wood, he was seeing it. There was no radio playing, no phone in his pocket, no glance at the clock. His entire consciousness had flowed into the tip of his pencil, the edge of the tape. When he finally made the cut with his saw, the sound wasn't a harsh screech. It was the clean, decisive sound of a single intention being fulfilled. That table wasn't just built, it was revealed through a series of deep, singular acts of attention. Now, let's contrast that with a morning you might recognize. You wake up. Before your feet even touch the floor, your hand finds your phone. A swipe, emails, news headlines, social updates, a torrent of points of focus, each demanding a microsecond of your mind. You're planning your day in the shower, half listening to a podcast while making coffee, skimming an article as you eat, your mind already leaping ahead to the first meeting. It feels normal. It feels efficient. We've even given it a proud name, multitasking. But here is the quiet neurological truth your brain knows, even if you've forgotten. You cannot think two thoughts at once. What you're doing is not multitasking, it is task switching, and every single switch carries a cost, a cognitive tax. Think of your focus not as a spotlight, but as a master craftsman at his bench. Every time he's pulled away to answer a question, to check a notification, to turn and look at something else, he must lay down his tools. When he returns, he needs time to pick them up again, to find his place, to re-engage his muscle memory. A little bit of heat leaves the forge, a little bit of momentum is lost. That is your mind. Every switch, from writing a report to checking a text, from listening to a colleague to thinking about dinner, forces your brain to perform a tiny, exhausting shutdown and reboot. The cost is measured in time, in mental energy, and most profoundly, in the quality of your thought. The promise of multitasking is a lie. It tells you you're doing more, when in reality, you are thinking less. You are skimming the surface of many things, but diving into none. And your psychology records this. It shows up as that low-grade anxiety humming in the background, the feeling that nothing is ever truly finished because your attention was never truly given. It's the mental clutter that makes you feel tired at 10 a.m. It's why you can be busy all day and still feel, deep down, like you accomplished nothing of substance. Leo the carpenter understood something we have been trained to ignore. Depth requires exclusion. To focus deeply on one point, you must, for a time, exclude all others. This isn't just about productivity, this is about the texture of your life. Let's do a simple experiment in memory. Think of the last truly meaningful conversation you had, a conversation where you felt connected, understood. Where did your phone go? What happened to your wandering mind? In that moment, you gave the person in front of you a gift more valuable than any advice, your undivided attention. You placed them as the single point of your focus, and the connection you felt was the direct result of that depth. Now, think of a piece of work you're genuinely proud of. Not the thing you rushed through, but the thing that has your signature on it, in spirit if not in name. I'd bet that during its creation, the world faded away for a while. You hit a state where time distorted, distractions melted, and you were simply in the work. That is the state of single-pointed focus. That is where mastery and satisfaction live. The modern world is built to shatter that point. It is engineered to create endless, attractive fragments. Your discipline, your path to a deeper life begins with the conscious decision to resist that fragmentation, to choose again and again the power of one thing. This isn't a call to never switch tasks. Life requires that. It is a call to become the conscious author of your switches, not the helpless victim of them. So, how do we start reclaiming this power? We start with recognition. For the rest of today, I want you to just observe. Don't try to change anything yet. Just watch the rhythm of your own attention. Notice when you reach for your phone without a conscious reason. Notice when you open a second browser tab while something else is loading. Notice when your mind leaps from the task at hand to a worry, a plan, a memory. Don't judge it, just see it. See the constant, gentle tug away from depth toward distraction. Because you cannot change what you do not see, and the first step toward the discipline of depth is to see with clear eyes the habit of fragmentation you've been practicing. That noticing itself is an act of focus. It is you beginning to gather your scattered attention back to a single point, the observation of your own mind.
It is the first quiet step off the hectic multitasking highway and onto a different path, a narrower path, a deeper one. And on this path, you'll find something you may have been missing in the buzz and swirl, the profound power of your own gathered mind. That noticing, that simple act of witnessing your own distraction is where your power begins to return. It feels like a whisper in a noisy room, but that whisper is your true voice, the part of you that wants to be here fully for your own life. We've seen the cost of the myth. Now let's build the reality of the single point. We'll start not with your workday, but with something even more fundamental, your morning. Imagine tomorrow. The alarm goes off. Instead of your hand finding the phone, it finds nothing. It rests on your chest. You feel the breath enter your body. You hear the quiet of the room or the early birds outside. For 60 seconds, you do not consume, you do not plan, you simply exist in the single point of waking up. This is not a grand gesture, it is a tiny, profound rebellion against the fragmented world. From that anchored start, you make your coffee, but you just make the coffee. You hear the grinder, you smell the grounds, you watch the hot water drip. You are not also reading news. You are having a complete experience of a simple ritual. In these first 30 minutes, you are not multitasking, you are unitasking. You are rehearsing the state of deep focus with the small things so it becomes available to you for the big things. This is the practice, not perfection, but presence. Now, let's bring this principle into the heart of your day with a real story. Meet Sarah, a project manager in a tech company, constantly on fire, putting out fires. Her days were a mosaic of Slack pings, back-to-back Zoom calls, and a browser with 20 tabs open. She was the poster child for multitasking, praised for her reactivity. But she drove home every night feeling hollow, like she'd been running on a treadmill made of other people's emergencies. Her breaking point was a performance review. Her boss said, "You're incredibly responsive, but we need more of your thinking. We need your strategic ideas." She had no strategic ideas. Her mind was too busy switching tracks to ever build up speed in one direction. So Sarah decided to experiment. She told her team she was blocking her calendar for a focus session every morning from 9 to 10:30. No meetings, no notifications. She used an app to block every website except her document editor. The first day was agony. It felt like withdrawal. Her mind itched to check email, to see what was happening elsewhere. The silence was deafening. But she had a single point, one overdue strategic document. For 90 minutes, she wrestled with the blank page. Slowly, clumsily, the gears of her own deep thought began to turn. Without the constant interruption, her mind could follow a chain of logic longer than 2 minutes. It could stumble, backtrack, and find a new path. She didn't finish the document that first day, but she found a single valuable insight, a connection she'd missed in months of frantic work. The real change, however, wasn't in the document, it was in her psychology. When she emerged from that focus session, she felt different. The buzzing anxiety was lower. She felt a quiet sense of ownership. She had produced something, not just processed things. That feeling, that residue of depth, made the reactive parts of her day feel less draining. She was no longer just a switchboard operator for other people's priorities. She had become, for 90 minutes, the author of her own. Sarah's story shows us the mechanics and the payoff. The mechanics are simple, but they require a boundary: time, space, and a ruthless elimination of choice during that period. The payoff is psychological fuel. Depth doesn't just create output, it creates resilience. The satisfaction of deep work acts as an emotional buffer against the inevitable shallowness of the rest of the day. So, let's break down how you can build your first single point of focus. Choose your point. One thing. Not catch up on work. That's a category, not a point. A point is write the project proposal introduction, plan the agenda for the family meeting, read and take notes on Chapter 3. Carve your space. Time, a block you defend. Start shockingly small if you need to. 20 minutes. Space, a physical or digital environment stripped of obvious exits. Phone in another room, browser blockers on. Ritualize the entry. A simple ritual tells your brain it's time to shift states. It could be 3 deep breaths. It could be pouring a glass of water. It could be saying, "Okay, for the next 20 minutes, it's just this."
Work with the resistance. When the itch to switch comes, and it will, you don't fight it. You note it. Ah, there's the itch to check email. And you gently return your gaze to your single point. This is the rep. This is the weightlifting of your focus muscle. Honor the exit. When time is up, stop. Step away. Breathe. This isn't about marathon suffering. It's about consistent, high-quality engagement. The exit ritual is a reward. It tells your brain, that was good work. This process isn't sexy. It won't look impressive from the outside. But inside your mind, you are doing something revolutionary. You are teaching your brain a new default. You are replacing the habit of fragmentation with the practice of integration. You are building, one single point at a time, the architecture for a deeper life. The architecture for a deeper life. It sounds solid, permanent. But the truth is, this architecture is built in the face of a constant, gentle wind, the wind of distraction. And that wind doesn't just blow from our phones, it blows from inside us. After Sarah established her morning focus session, she hit a second wall. The external distractions were managed, but the internal ones remained. In the quiet she had created, her own mind became the noisy room. Halfway through writing a key section, a thought would hijack her focus. Did I reply to Tom's email about the budget? She'd push it away. A minute later, I need to add milk to the grocery list. Then a wave of anxiety about an upcoming dentist appointment. Then a fragment of a song she heard yesterday. Her focus wasn't being broken by the outside world, it was being eroded from within. This is where most people give up on depth. They create the external conditions for focus only to find a restless, chattering mind waiting for them inside the sanctuary. They conclude, I just can't focus. My mind is too busy. But that's not a verdict. That's the starting point. The discipline of depth isn't about having a perfectly quiet mind. It's about developing a different relationship with the noise. Let me introduce you to a concept from cognitive psychology, the default mode network. It's a web of brain regions that light up when you're not focused on an external task, when you're daydreaming, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, or thinking about yourself. In other words, it's your brain's internal distraction factory, and it's always running in the background, like a radio playing in another room. When you sit down to focus, you're asking your brain to turn down that radio and tune into a single, clear station, the task at hand. But the default mode network doesn't like to be turned down. It sends up thought after thought, like little flares, trying to pull your attention back to its familiar wandering channels. That email, the grocery list, the dentist, the song. These aren't signs you're failing. They're signs your brain is working exactly as evolved. It's a meaning-making machine, constantly trying to connect dots, solve problems, and simulate scenarios. The trouble is, it tries to do all this while you're trying to think about something else. So what do? We don't fight the flares. We learn to acknowledge them and let them pass. Think of it like this. You're sitting by a clear, flowing stream, the stream of your deep focus. Leaves keep floating down the stream. Those are your distracting thoughts. The untrained reaction is to jump up, run after each leaf, examine it, maybe even jump into the stream to chase it. Your focus is gone. The trained response is to stay seated, to see the leaf, to note, there's a thought about the grocery list, and to watch it float on by, disappearing around the bend while you keep your eyes on the water in front of you. This is the internal muscle of the discipline of depth, not control, but gentle return. Sarah learned this. She kept a notepad next to her laptop. When a pressing, useful thought arose, email Tom, she would write it down in 3 words. This was not an interruption. It was a pact with her mind, a promise of, I will handle you later. The thought, honored with a note, would often release its grip. When an irrelevant thought or anxiety arose, she wouldn't write it down. She would mentally say, not now. And she would deliberately feel her body in the chair, the pressure of her feet on the floor, the feel of the keyboard under her fingers. She would bring her attention from the chaotic world of her thoughts back to the simple, physical reality of the present task. She was training herself to anchor in her senses, not in her simulations. This is the profound secret. Depth is not just a mental state, it is an embodied one. Your distracted mind lives in the abstract, in yesterday's conversation, in tomorrow's meeting. Your focused mind lives right here, in the feeling of your breath, the sight of the words on the screen, the specific problem in front of you.
So your practice now expands.
You've created the external fortress of focus time. Now you must train the internal gatekeeper. Here is a simple, powerful exercise you can begin today. It takes 3 minutes. Sit comfortably. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Your single point of focus will be the physical sensation of your breath entering and leaving your nostrils. That's it. Begin. Almost immediately, a thought will come. It might be, "This is silly," or "What am I having for lunch?" The moment you realize your attention is no longer on your breath, you have already succeeded. That moment of realization is the magic moment. Do not get frustrated. Gently, without judgment, guide your attention back to the feeling of the breath. In and out. That is the entire exercise. Not achieving perfect focus, but practicing the return. You are building the neural pathway for the gesture of gentle return. And that is the exact same muscle you use when, in the middle of writing a report, your mind wanders to a worry. You notice, you don't scold yourself, you gently return to the sentence you are writing. You are not clearing the stream of leaves. You are learning to sit by the stream while the leaves float by. This changes everything. It transforms the internal noise from an enemy that sabotages your focus into simply weather. Sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, but always passing. And you, the conscious one, are not the weather. You are the one who experiences it and chooses again and again where to place your attention. When Sarah integrated this, the notepad for useful intrusions, the gentle return for the rest, her focus sessions transformed. The struggle faded. The sessions became less of a battle and more of a dive. She could slip beneath the surface chatter into the quiet, productive depths below. The external world will always have its pings and alerts, but the internal world, that is your sovereign territory. Training your attention to return gently and consistently to a single point, that is how you claim it. It is how you move from building the architecture of a deep life to finally becoming its calm, unwavering inhabitant. That calm, unwavering inhabitant. It's a powerful image, isn't it? To be the steady presence in the center of your own life, not tossed by every internal and external wave. But life, of course, is not a quiet stream. It is also a busy street, a crowded office, a noisy home. The ultimate test of your depth isn't in the sanctuary you build for yourself, it's in the chaos you cannot control. This brings us to the second pillar of the discipline of depth, one that is often the hardest to accept: the courage to neglect. We fear this word, neglect. It sounds like failure, like irresponsibility. But in the economy of attention, neglect is not a vice. It is the necessary strategy for survival. You must have the courage to neglect the trivial, the urgent but unimportant, and the loudly demanding, so you can honor what is truly essential. Think of your attention as a kingdom. You are its sovereign. Every email, every request, every notification, every passing thought is a subject clamoring for an audience. The undisciplined sovereign tries to see everyone, rushing from petitioner to petitioner, exhausted, making rushed decisions, pleasing no one. The kingdom falls into chaos. The disciplined sovereign knows that to rule effectively, they must be inaccessible for stretches of time. They must have guarded gates and private chambers. They must say, "Not now," so they can later say, "Yes," fully to what matters most. This is not about being rude or unavailable. It is about understanding that your most valuable resource, your deep focus, is non-renewable in the moment. Once it's fragmented, it cannot be pieced back together until you have rested and reset. Let's look at a real-life example, not from a workshop, but from an emergency room. Dr. Anya Sharma is an ER physician. Her environment is the definition of chaos. Alarms, trauma, multiple critical patients, families in distress, interns with questions. She cannot control the external noise, but she has mastered the internal discipline of the single point under fire. I asked her how she avoids being overwhelmed, how she makes life and death decisions in that maelstrom. She said something I'll never forget. "I have learned to see only the patient in front of me. When I am with patient A, the
The entire world is patient A, their chart, their vitals, their story. I do not hear the chaos around bed B. I have trained my mind to treat that as irrelevant data for these 60 seconds. My team knows that when I am in that zone, they do not interrupt unless it is for this patient. Then, when the decision is made and orders are given, I exhale. I consciously let that patient go. I turn, and now the entire world becomes patient B. If I tried to hold all of them in my mind at once, I would freeze. I would fail them all.
Dr. Sharma is a master of serial monotasking. In the most polytasking environment imaginable, she creates a series of profound, single-pointed focuses. She neglects everything else by conscious design so she can be fully present for the one thing that demands her depth. Her courage to neglect is not a lack of care. It is the highest form of care, channeled with precision. Now, translate this to your world. Your emergency room might be a busy workday, a household with young children, or a calendar packed with obligations. The principle is the same. You cannot be deep with everyone and everything simultaneously. You must choose your point of depth, and for a defined period, you must let the rest become background noise. This requires two courageous acts. First, the courage to set a boundary. This is external. It is telling your team, I am heads down on this report until 11 a.m. Please hold non-critical questions. It is telling your family, I need 20 uninterrupted minutes to finish this, then I am all yours. It is putting your phone in a drawer and closing your email tab. It feels uncomfortable because we are wired to be responsive, to be helpful. But a boundary is not a wall to keep people out. It is a gate you control, so you can let them in with your full presence later. Second, and more difficult, the courage to ignore your own anxiety. This is internal. When you set that boundary and begin your focused work, your brain's default mode network will scream about all the things you are neglecting. That other project is falling behind. What if someone needs you? You should really check that other thing first. This anxiety feels urgent, but it is almost always a phantom. It's your brain's addiction to distraction masquerading as productivity. Here, you must become like Dr. Sharma. You acknowledge the other patients in your mental ER. You say, I see you. You are important, but you are not my patient right now. You write them down on your notepad, your triage list, and you return to the single point in front of you. Neglect, in this disciplined sense, is an act of profound trust. Trust in your system. Trust that the world will not fall apart in 30 minutes. Trust that handling one thing with depth is better than handling 5 things with panic. So, your practice deepens. You have your focus session ritual. Now you add the ritual of conscious triage. At the start of your work block, take 5 minutes. Look at everything clamoring for your attention, emails, tasks, worries. Write them down. Then, with brutal honesty, ask, which of these, if I give it my full depth for the next hour, will make everything else easier or irrelevant? That is your single point. That is your patient. For the next hour, the rest of the list is officially, courageously neglected. It does not exist. You have granted yourself a temporary pardon from the guilt of not doing it all. This is how you move from being a reactive manager of chaos to a proactive architect of your impact. It's how you discover that the most important things are rarely the loudest. They are often the quiet, difficult tasks that require your undivided mind. The strategic plan, not the frantic email. The difficult conversation, not the easy gossip. The creative project, not the administrative busywork. The courage to neglect the loud is how you find the quiet voice of your own purpose and give it the depth it deserves. The quiet voice of your own purpose, it's a voice that can only be heard when the noise dies down, both the noise outside and the noise of your own anxious urgency. But what happens when you've built the sanctuary, trained your attention, and mustered the courage to neglect, and you walk into that quiet space, only to find nothing? No inspiration, no clear direction, just a blank page, a silent mind, and the pressure of your own expectations. This is the third and perhaps most subtle challenge of depth: the void. It's the space between distractions, and for many of us, that space is terrifying. We've filled it for so long with input, with reactivity, with small tasks that its emptiness feels like a vacuum. We mistake the buzz of busyness for the hum of a life being lived. When the buzz stops, we panic. We confuse the quiet with stagnation, with a lack of progress. So, we flee back to the noise. We pick up our phone, we just check email. We find a small, urgent task to fill the void. We run from the very silence we sought. But here is the essential psychological truth. The void is not your enemy. It is the incubation chamber. Think of a seed in the dark soil. Nothing appears to be happening. No visible growth, no green shoot. But in that quiet, dark void, a profound biochemical process is unfolding. The seed is gathering itself, breaking down its stored energy, preparing for its breakthrough to the surface. The darkness is not a prison. It is the necessary condition for its transformation.
Your mind works the same way. The focused, undistracted void, the blank page, the silent walk, the meditation cushion is where your subconscious does its most important work. It's where disconnected ideas find each other, where emotional knots begin to entangle, where the seeds of insight, buried under the daily clutter, finally sprout. Let me tell you about Mark. Mark was a graphic designer who hit a wall of burnout. His creativity felt hollow, recycled. His solution was to seek more stimulation, new design blogs, more social media inspiration, endless scrolling through portfolios. He was consuming creativity at a frantic pace, but producing less and less of his own. Finally, on the advice of a mentor, he did the unthinkable. He took a stimulation fast. For 1 week, no design websites, no social media, no looking at other people's work. His assignment was to spend 1 hour each morning just sitting with his sketchbook. No goal, no client brief, just him, a pencil, and the empty paper. The first 2 days were agony. He fidgeted, he felt stupid. He drew a few meaningless lines. The void screamed at him, "This is a waste of time. You should be working. You're falling behind." But he stayed. He didn't run. On the 3rd day, out of sheer boredom, he started doodling shapes from his childhood, the pattern on his grandmother's old linoleum floor, the wrought iron design of his first apartment's fire escape. Memories surfaced, feelings, not about design, but about home, about texture, about a sense of place. By the end of the week, without looking at a single trend, he had filled pages with a completely new, personal visual language. It was raw, but it was his. It came from a depth he had been unable to access while constantly feeding on the surface-level creativity of others. Mark's story reveals the paradox. We often try to fill the creative or intellectual void with more input, when what it truly needs is our patient, receptive presence. The discipline of depth, therefore, is not just about focused doing, it is equally about focused not doing. It is about cultivating a productive emptiness. This is where we move from tactics to mindset. How do you befriend the void? You start by reframing it. The void is not wasted time, it is integration time. It is listening time. Here are 2 ways to practice. 1. The walking void. Commit to a 20-minute walk with no audio input, no podcasts, no music, just you, your body moving, and the world around you. Your mind will race. It will try to solve problems, replay conversations. Let it. Don't try to force it to be quiet. Just keep walking, keep sensing. The rhythm of your steps, the air on your skin, the colors you see. Over time, the mental chatter begins to settle, not because you silenced it, but because you stopped fighting it. And in that settled space, a new thought, a calm, clear one, often arises. This is your mind integrating in the void. 2. The morning page void. Before you consume anything, a news article, a text, a sip of coffee, sit with a notebook for 5 minutes. Write whatever comes to your head. I'm tired, I don't know what to write, the bird outside is loud, I'm worried about the meeting. Do not edit. Do not aim for profundity. You are not writing for an audience. You are clearing the pipes. You are dumping the fragmented, anxious thoughts onto the page to create a void inside your mind. Once they're out, there is space, and in that space, a sentence of truth might appear. The thing I'm really avoiding is... The void is where you meet yourself without agenda or distraction. This is why the deepest breakthroughs in science, in art, in personal insight so often happen in the shower, on a long drive, during a walk. It's when the focused, directed mind relaxes its grip and the subconscious, which has been working in the dark all along, delivers its gift to the surface. So, in your pursuit of a deep life, you must schedule not only focus sessions, but void sessions, time where your only task is to be present with the emptiness, to resist the reflexive reach for a device to fill it. This is the final inner fortress of the discipline of depth. You've built walls against external distraction, you've trained guards against internal chatter. Now you must cultivate the central courtyard, the open, silent space where the real magic of connection happens. The connection between your scattered thoughts, forming a new idea. The connection between your feelings and your understanding. The connection between your daily actions and your deeper purpose. Do not fear the quiet. Do not rush to fill it. Learn to sit in the void and listen. What you hear in that silence will be more valuable than any notification, more urgent than any email, and more truly you than anything you've consumed all day. It is in the void that your depth finds its own voice and begins to speak. Your mind works the same way. The focused, undistracted void, the blank page, the silent walk, the meditation cushion, is where your subconscious does its most important work. It's where disconnected ideas find each other, where emotional knots begin to entangle, where the seeds of insight, buried under the daily clutter, finally sprout. Let me tell you about Mark. Mark was a graphic designer who hit a wall of burnout. His creativity felt hollow, recycled. His solution was to seek more stimulation, new design blogs, more social media inspiration, endless scrolling through portfolios. He was consuming creativity at a frantic pace, but producing less and less of his own. Finally, on the advice of a mentor, he did the unthinkable. He took a stimulation fast. For 1 week, no design websites, no social media, no looking at other people's work. His assignment was to spend 1 hour each morning just sitting with his sketchbook. No goal, no client brief, just him, a pencil, and the empty paper. The first 2 days were agony. He fidgeted, he felt stupid. He drew a few meaningless lines. The void screamed at him, "This is a waste of time. You should be working. You're falling behind." But he stayed. He didn't run. On the 3rd day, out of sheer boredom, he started doodling shapes from his childhood. The pattern on his grandmother's old linoleum floor, the wrought iron design of his first apartment's fire escape. Memories surfaced, feelings, not about design, but about home, about texture, about a sense of place. By the end of the week, without looking at a single trend, he had filled pages with a completely new, personal visual language. It was raw, but it was his. It came from a depth he had been unable to access while constantly feeding on the surface-level creativity of others. Mark's story reveals the paradox. We often try to fill the creative or intellectual void with more input, when what it truly needs is our patient, receptive presence. The discipline of depth, therefore, is not just about focused doing, it is equally about focused not doing. It is about cultivating a productive emptiness. This is where we move from tactics to mindset. How do you befriend the void? You start by reframing it. The void is not wasted time, it is integration time. It is listening time. Here are 2 ways to practice. 1. The walking void. Commit to a 20-minute walk with no audio input, no podcasts, no music, just you, your body moving, and the world around you. Your mind will race. It will try to solve problems, replay conversations. Let it. Don't try to force it to be quiet. Just keep walking, keep sensing. The rhythm of your steps, the air on your skin, the colors you see. Over time, the mental chatter begins to settle, not because you silenced it, but because you stopped fighting it. And in that settled space, a new thought, a calm, clear one, often arises. This is your mind integrating in the void. 2. The morning page void. Before you consume anything, a news article, a text, a sip of coffee, sit with a notebook for 5 minutes. Write whatever comes to your head. I'm tired, I don't know what to write, the bird outside is loud, I'm worried about the meeting. Do not edit. Do not aim for profundity. You are not writing for an audience. You are clearing the pipes. You are dumping the fragmented, anxious thoughts onto the page to create a void inside your mind. Once they're out, there is space, and in that space, a sentence of truth might appear. The thing I'm really avoiding is... The void is where you meet yourself without agenda or distraction. This is why the deepest breakthroughs in science, in art, in personal insight so often happen in the shower, on a long drive, during a walk. It's when the focused, directed mind relaxes its grip and the subconscious, which has been working in the dark all along, delivers its gift to the surface. So, in your pursuit of a deep life, you must schedule not only focus sessions, but void sessions, time where your only task is to be present with the emptiness, to resist the reflexive reach for a device to fill it. This is the final inner fortress of the discipline of depth. You've built walls against external distraction, you've trained guards against internal chatter. Now you must cultivate the central courtyard, the open, silent space where the real magic of connection happens. The connection between your scattered thoughts, forming a new idea. The connection between your feelings and your understanding. The connection between your daily actions and your deeper purpose. Do not fear the quiet. Do not rush to fill it. Learn to sit in the void and listen. What you hear in that silence will be more valuable than any notification, more urgent than any email, and more truly you than anything you've consumed all day. It is in the void that your depth finds its own voice and begins to speak.
The voice that speaks from the void is rarely loud. It doesn't shout demands or flash with urgency. It's more like a whisper, a clear, steady knowing that cuts through the clutter of should and must. This is the voice of your intuition, and learning to trust it is the fourth and most transformative pillar of the discipline of depth, the intelligence of the unforced mind. We've been taught that intelligence is linear, that it's a grinding process of analysis, of pros and cons lists, of relentless forward pressure, and that has its place. But there is another kind of intelligence that operates in the quiet spaces you've been cultivating. It's the intelligence of the pattern you sense but can't yet prove, the gut feeling, the sudden aha that arrives when you're not forcing it. This isn't mystical thinking, it's cognitive science. When you focus deeply on a problem and then step away, into the shower, for a walk, into the void, you engage a process called diffuse thinking. Your brain's focus network takes a break, but your subconscious doesn't. It continues to work on the problem, making remote associations, connecting dots from different parts of your memory and experience that your focused logical mind would never think to link. The brilliant insight that solves your work dilemma? The perfect opening line for your presentation. The understanding that mends a strained relationship. They often come from this diffuse mode. They are the gifts of the unforced mind. But you cannot receive these gifts if you were never still enough to hear them. If every interstitial moment, every wait in line, every pause in conversation is immediately filled with scrolling, you are constantly interrupting the delivery. Let's look at someone who learned to trust this, not in an artist's studio, but in a high-stakes laboratory. Dr. Elias Thorne was a research scientist, stuck on a problem that had blocked his team for months. The data was messy. The experiments weren't yielding clear results. He was working 14-hour days, forcing solutions, staring at spreadsheets until his vision blurred. Frustrated and exhausted, he remembered an old professor's advice: when the lab work fails, go to the garden. So, one afternoon, he left. He went to a botanical garden and just walked. He didn't try to think about the problem. He looked at the shapes of leaves, the colors of flowers. He felt the sun on his neck. His mind, exhausted from forcing, began to wander freely. And as he stood before a sprawling, ancient wisteria vine, he saw it, not with his eyes, but in his mind. The vine didn't grow in a straight, logical line. It twisted, it branched, it used existing structures for support. Its strength was in its adaptive, networked pattern. In that moment, the insight hit him with physical force. He wasn't looking for a single cause in his data. He was looking for a network of interactions, a twisting, branching system of feedback loops, just like the vine. He'd been using the wrong model entirely. He rushed back to the lab, not with an answer, but with a completely new and fruitful question. His breakthrough didn't come from working harder, it came from working differently. It came from allowing his unforced mind, stimulated by a completely unrelated pattern in nature, to do what his forced mind could not: see a new shape. This is the intelligence of depth. It's not just concentration, it's a rhythm of intense focus followed by deliberate release, of gathering information then allowing integration. Your modern life, however, is built on a rhythm of constant shallow engagement. It praises the force, it rewards immediate reactivity, it mistakes the frantic search for the actual finding. So how do you start to harness this? You begin by scheduling your disengagement. This is the counterintuitive, essential practice. You must ritualize stepping away. After a 90-minute focus session on a complex problem, schedule 20 minutes of mandatory diffuse thinking time. The rule is you cannot work on the problem. You must do something that occupies your body and frees your mind. Go for a walk without headphones. Wash the dishes, fold laundry, doodle in a notebook. You will feel resistance. Your productivity conditioning will scream that this is wasted time. That's the addiction talking. In those 20 minutes, you are not idle. You are incubating. You're allowing the seeds you planted during your deep focus to germinate in the dark soil of your subconscious. The second practice is to create an intuition log. Get a small notebook or a note on your phone. When you have a gut feeling, a quiet yes or no about a decision, a sense that a person is trustworthy or not, a hunch about which path to take, write it down, briefly. Then later, record what happened. Don't do this to prove yourself right or wrong. Do it to build a relationship of trust with this quieter part of your mind. You will start to see patterns. You'll notice that the forced, anxious decision often leads to complication. The clear, calm intuition, even when it defies logic, often leads to a smoother path. You are gathering evidence that this voice is worth listening to. This shifts the entire goal of your discipline. It's no longer just about producing more output with your focused mind. It's about creating the conditions for your whole mind, focused and diffuse, analytical and intuitive, to collaborate. You become the conductor, not just of attention, but of your own cognition. You learn when to lean in with fierce concentration and when to lean back in receptive stillness. You understand that the deepest solutions, the most authentic creations, and the wisest decisions are born from this dialogue. The unforced mind is not lazy, it is profound. It speaks the language of synthesis, of meaning, of connection. Your job is to stop shouting long enough to hear it, to build altars of quiet in your day where this deeper intelligence can lay its offerings. When you do, you stop just solving problems, you start navigating complexity. You don't just follow a map, you develop a sense of direction. This is how depth moves from a productivity hack to a way of being. It becomes your compass in the noise, pointing you with a quiet certainty toward what is true, what is meaningful, and what is yours to do. That quiet certainty, it's the feeling of knowing your next right move, not from a place of panic, but from a place of alignment. It's the compass needle settling. But a compass is useless without a map, and the map for a deep life isn't drawn with the landmarks of other people's expectations or society's frantic pace. You have to draw it yourself. You have to define what depth actually means for you. This brings us to the cornerstone of the entire discipline, the Deep Life Inventory. So far, we've been building skills, the skill of single-pointed focus, the courage to neglect the trivial, the tolerance for the creative void, the trust in your unforced intelligence. These are your tools. But a master carpenter doesn't just have sharp tools, they have a vision for the piece they're creating. What is the piece you are creating? Is it your life's work, your family, your own character,
your peace. The Deep Life Inventory is a courageous, quiet audit. It's where you hold your actual life, how you spend your time, energy, and attention, up against the life you feel called to live. It's where you look for the gap, not with judgment, but with the clarity of a surveyor. Because here is the uncomfortable, liberating truth. You are already living a deep life. It's just that your depth is likely poured into things you haven't consciously chosen. You have deep habits, deep worries, deep scrolls through social media, deep grooves of resentment or procrastination. Your attention naturally sinks into something. The question is, are you sinking it into what truly matters to you? Let's meet Maya. Maya was a successful marketing director, a mother of two, constantly in motion. She felt a persistent low-grade ache of dissatisfaction she called just stress. On paper, her life was full. In her heart, it felt shallow. On a retreat, the facilitator gave a simple instruction. For 1 week, carry a small notebook. Every hour, on the hour, write down what you are doing and what you are thinking about. Just 1 sentence for each. The results were a mirror she couldn't avoid. 9 a.m. Doing, team meeting. Thinking, my son's science project is due tomorrow. 2 p.m. Doing, writing campaign brief. Thinking, I should call my mom. Guilt. 8 p.m. Doing, watching TV with family. Thinking, that angry email from the client. 11 p.m. Doing, scrolling on phone in bed. Thinking, I'm so tired, why can't I sleep? Her depth was everywhere and nowhere. Her focus was perpetually borrowed, her presence on loan. Her mental energy was sunk into a swamp of past obligations and future anxieties. The things she professed to value most, being present with her kids, doing creative strategy, maintaining her health, were getting the shattered fragments of her attention. The gap between her values and her actions was the source of her ache. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding conflicting beliefs and behaviors. Her mind was saying, family is important, but her actions were saying, but so is this urgent email. The brain hates this dissonance. It will try to resolve it, usually the laziest way, by lowering the value. Well, I guess being truly present with my kids isn't that critical. Everyone is distracted. This is how we slowly, silently abandon ourselves. Maya's inventory was her moment of reckoning. She didn't need more time management tips. She needed a value-attention realignment. So, how do you conduct your own deep life inventory? It's a process, not a punishment. Step 1. The time excavation. For 3 days, track your time in broad categories. Not every minute, but what filled your days? Work, commute, screens, social/media/entertainment, family, quality interaction, self, exercise, reading, solitude, chores, sleep. No cheating, just the facts. Step 2. The value declaration. Now, on a fresh page, write down your 4 to 5 core values. Not what you think they should be, what they are. What, if it were stripped from your life, would make it feel meaningless? Is it creativity? Connection? Contribution? Peace? Authenticity? Be brutally honest. Achievement might be there. Rest might be there. There's no right answer, only yours. Step 3. The gap analysis. Place the 2 pages side by side. This is the moment of truth. Where is your time and attention flowing, and where do your values live? Does connection get 20 minutes of fractured conversation while you cook, or does it get a weekly phone-free walk with a friend? Does creativity get a blocked hour each morning, or does it get the exhausted dregs of your Sunday night? Does peace get a daily 5-minute breathing space, or does it get traded for one more scroll through the news? The gap isn't failure, it's information. It's your compass telling you you're off course. Step 4. The single-point realignment. You cannot change all the gaps at once. That leads to overwhelm and abandonment. Choose one. Just one.
If the gap is between health and your 45 minutes of nightly scrolling, your realignment is not get fit. It's at 9:30 p.m. the phone goes on the charger in the kitchen. I will read a book for 20 minutes instead. You are not adding a new task. You are redirecting depth from a chosen shallow channel, scrolling, to a chosen deep one, restful reading that supports sleep. This is where all our previous skills converge. You use your courage to neglect the scroll. You create a single point of focus on the book. You tolerate the void of not having digital noise before sleep, and you trust the intelligence that this realignment, though small, is moving you toward wholeness. Maya's realignment was simple. She identified that presence was a top value, utterly absent from her inventory. Her one change: she bought a cheap analog alarm clock. Her phone now charges in the kitchen overnight. The first hour of her day is for her, her coffee, and her children. No digital ghost at the table. The change in her inner state wasn't overnight, but within 2 weeks, she reported the low-grade ache had softened. She wasn't less busy, but she was more located. She was in her life, not just managing it. The deep life inventory is not a one-time event. It's a practice you return to seasonally. Your values shift, your life changes. The gap will always exist. The discipline is in noticing it, and with compassion, choosing one small, profound act of realignment. This is the work not of building a perfect life, but of building a coherent one, where your actions whisper, and sometimes even speak aloud, the same truth your heart holds. When your depth finally flows into the channels you've consciously dug for it, a profound shift occurs. You stop feeling like you're constantly borrowing energy from tomorrow to pay for today's distractions. You start feeling like you're investing it. And the compound interest on that investment is a life that feels unmistakably and undeniably like your own. That feeling, a life that feels like your own, it is the ultimate reward of the discipline we are practicing. It is not a final destination, but a quality of presence you carry with you. We have built the architecture, the focus, the courage, the tolerance for silence, the trust in your deeper mind, and the map of your own values. We have moved from the scattered surface to the integrated depths. But life is not static, it is dynamic. There are days of bright sun and calm seas, perfect for diving deep. And there are days of storm, of grief, of loss, of unexpected crisis. Days when the world shakes and your carefully built sanctuary of focus seems fragile, irrelevant even. This is the final and perhaps most sacred application of the discipline of depth, the anchor in the storm. When the winds of chaos blow, the untrained mind splinters. It races from one catastrophic what-if to another, trying to solve 1,000 future problems at once. It feels like the opposite of focus. It's a frantic, desperate multi-worrying. It's exhausting, and it leaves you powerless. The disciplined mind, the mind trained in depth, has a different response. It knows it cannot control the storm, but it can control the anchor.
And the anchor is the smallest possible single point of focus. Let me share a story not of public success, but of private resilience. A woman named Claire. Claire's husband passed away unexpectedly. The grief was a tsunami, washing away the familiar landscape of her daily life. Planning, working, even thinking straight felt impossible. The deep work of her career, the strategic plans, the creative projects, they felt like artifacts from a foreign planet. In the midst of this, a friend who understood Claire's previous interest in mindfulness gave her not advice, but a single instruction: just make the tea. Confused but desperate for any structure, Claire did. The next morning, in the crushing quiet of her kitchen, she focused on making a single cup of tea, not thinking, not planning the funeral, not drowning in memories, just making the tea. She felt the cool ceramic of the kettle. She listened to the specific sound of the water filling it. She watched the blue gas flame hiss to life. She noticed the steam begin to rise. She measured the loose leaves, listened to the pour, watched the color bloom in the water. For 5 minutes, her entire universe was the ritual of making tea. In those 5 minutes, she was not okay. The grief was still a vast ocean around her, but she was not drowning. She was anchored. She had found a single solid point in a world that had lost all its solidity. That tiny, deep focus did not solve her grief, but it gave her a momentary footing. From that footing, she could take the next single point, breathing. Then the next, getting dressed. Then the next, making one phone call. Claire's story reveals the deepest truth of this discipline. Depth is not a luxury for peaceful times. It is a survival mechanism for turbulent ones. When you are overwhelmed, your brain's threat response is screaming at you to scan the horizon for all possible dangers, to multitask your panic. This is what creates the feeling of being shattered. The countermove is to do the exact opposite, to shrink your world voluntarily and with fierce intention down to one non-negotiable point of sensory reality. The feel of your feet on the floor, the sound of your own breath for 3 cycles, the taste of this one sip of water, the complete act of folding this one towel. This is not avoidance, this is strategic grounding. You are pulling your consciousness out of the abstract, terrifying thoughts about the future and placing it firmly into the physical, manageable reality of the present moment. You are giving your overwhelmed brain a simple, completable task. You are proving to yourself in the most basic way that you can still do something. You can still complete a cycle of attention. This is the discipline of depth in its purest, most essential form. It is the application of all your training to the moments when you need it most, not to achieve, but simply to endure, to remain. In your own life, the storms may be different. A layoff, a conflict that shakes your confidence, a period of debilitating anxiety, a global crisis. The principle holds. When you feel the world starting to spin, do not try to think your way out. Do not try to solve everything at once. Go small, go simple, go deep. Choose your anchor. It must be concrete, sensory, and short. I will fully feel the hot water of this shower for 60 seconds. I will walk to the mailbox and notice 5 different colors. I will write 3 lines in my journal, describing only what I can see right now. In that small, deep focus, you reclaim your sovereignty. You remind your nervous system that you are here, in a body, and that this moment, however hard, is containable. You build a tiny island of sanity in the chaos, and from that island, you can see the next one. This is how the discipline of depth completes its journey. It begins as a tool for better work. It evolves into a framework for a more meaningful life, and it culminates as an unshakable inner stance, a way of being that can withstand the impermanence and uncertainty of life itself. You realize that depth was never about doing more. It was about being more right where you are. Whether you are crafting a masterpiece, listening to your child, or simply breathing through a breaking heart, the principle is the same. You bring the full force of your attention to the single point in front of you. And in that point, you find not just effectiveness or satisfaction, but the very essence of your own humanity, the capacity to be present, to care, and to endure. This is the quiet, unstoppable power you have been cultivating all along. It is always with you, and it is enough. Enough. That word lands differently now, doesn't it? After a journey from fragmentation to focus, from noise to quiet, from the surface to the depths.
We've traveled through the mechanics of attention, the courage of choice, the tolerance of silence, the wisdom of the unforced mind, the clarity of your own values, and the resilience to stand in a storm. Now we arrive here, at the destination that was also the beginning. The discipline of depth is not a checklist you finish. It is a posture you inhabit, a way of relating to your own mind, your time, and your one precious life. So let's weave it all together. Let's paint a picture not of a perfect day, but of a deep day in the life you are now building. Your alarm sounds, not with a shocking blast, but with a gentle tone. In the dark, you feel your chest rise and fall, a single point of focus, your breath. You are not reaching for a screen, you are arriving in your body. This is your first, quiet act of sovereignty. You move through your morning ritual. Making coffee, you smell the grounds, you feel the warmth of the mug. You are not consuming news, you are consecrating the ordinary. You are practicing depth on easy mode, so the muscle is warm for what comes next. You sit for your focus session. You've chosen your single point, perhaps the hardest, most important task of your day. You've set your boundaries. The digital world is locked away. For this sacred hour, it does not exist. Your mind, of course, rebels. It throws up a flare, a worry about an email, a random song lyric. You see the flare. You note it. With the gentleness you've practiced, you let it float down the stream. Your hand might jot a useful intrusion on the notepad, a promise to your mind that it will be heard later. Then you return, again and again, to the sentence, to the problem, to the creative blank space. You are not fighting your mind, you are training it. You are the calm rider on the restless horse, guiding it patiently back to the path. When the session ends, you don't collapse into distraction, you step into deliberate disengagement. You take a walk, no headphones. Your mind, now saturated with the problem, is free to wander. And in this void, this incubation chamber, the diffuse magic happens. A connection forms, a solution whispers. You don't force it, you simply notice it arrive, a gift from the depths of your own intelligence. Throughout your day, requests and urgencies clamor. You feel the old tug to be everything to everyone, but you hear the quiet voice of your deep life inventory. You know what you value. With the courage to neglect, you say, "Not now." You protect the deep channels where your meaning flows. You are not being rude, you are being real. You are preserving your capacity to be truly present when it matters. A hard conversation arrives. Instead of rehearsing your lines while half listening, you do the opposite. You put everything down. You look at the person. You make them your single point of focus. You listen not just to their words, but to the meaning beneath them. Your depth becomes a gift you offer, and it transforms the exchange. Then, perhaps, the storm hits. Bad news, a wave of anxiety. The world feels shaky. You do not spin out. You do not multitask your panic. You go small. You find your anchor. The feel of the desk under my palms. The sound of 3 full breaths. You shrink your world to a single, manageable point of sensation. You prove to yourself that you can handle this moment and then the next. Your depth is no longer just for creating, it is for enduring. It is your life raft and your compass. At day's end, you reflect, not with a frantic to-do list for tomorrow, but with a quiet acknowledgement. You look not just at what you did, but at how you did it. Were you scattered or collected? Reactive or intentional? Shallow or deep? You see the gaps, always, but now you see them with clarity, not with shame. They are simply information, showing you where to gently, lovingly realign tomorrow. You pick up a book, not a phone, or you sit in quiet. The void is no longer a fearsome emptiness, but a familiar space, the inner courtyard of your own soul. It is where you meet yourself, where you hear the quiet voice of your own truth. And you sleep, not with a mind buzzing with unresolved fragments, but with the quiet satisfaction of a consciousness that was used fully and purposefully for a day. This is the deep life. It is not a life of more hours, it is a life of richer moments. It is not a life without distraction, but a life where you master your return. It is not a life of constant peak performance, but a life of authentic, sustainable presence. You will drift,
Of course you will. The current of the world is strong. The discipline is in the gentle, persistent return, not to perfection, but to the practice itself. Each time you choose one thing over many things, each time you sit in the quiet instead of filling it, each time you trust the whisper over the shout, you are not just managing your time.
You are claiming your humanity. You are building a life that can hold both ambition and peace, both effort and ease, both great love and great loss. Not because it is balanced, but because it is deep. And what is deep can hold complexity without breaking. The tools are yours. The map is drawn. The quiet power is within you, forged in the simple, daily acts of chosen attention. So go now into your noisy, beautiful, demanding world. And remember, you do not have to shout to be heard. You do not have to do everything to matter. You do not have to be everywhere to be whole. You just have to be here, deeply, fully, now. And then life goes on. It always does. The world returns with its noise, its demands, its endless stream of points competing for your gaze. But something is different now. You are different. You have felt the texture of a focused mind. You have known the strength in a quiet choice. You have heard your own truth speak from the silence. These are not just concepts you listen to. They are experiences you have begun to live. They have woven themselves into the fabric of your awareness. This is the true beginning, not of the journey, but of the integration. The discipline of depth is no longer a set of instructions. It is becoming a sense of depth. Like a musician develops an ear for pitch, you are developing an inner sense for the quality of your own attention. You will feel it when you slip into the shallow, reactive mode. The feeling is distinct, a buzzing in the chest, a slight fracturing of thought, a background hum of low-grade anxiety. It won't feel normal anymore. It will feel like a signal. And you will feel it when you drop into depth, a settling in the spine, a calming of the mental weather, a clarity that feels both sharp and spacious. You will recognize this as your home state. Your practice now moves from building the structure to living within it. It becomes subtler, more intuitive. It looks like the pause before you reach for your phone, that micro moment of choice where you ask, is this a conscious move toward connection or a reflex away from boredom? It sounds like the confidence in your own no, not a harsh rejection, but a clear, calm boundary that protects the deep work you are here to do, or the deep rest you need to recover. It feels like the patience you have with your own mind when it wanders. No frustration, just a gentle, almost amused, there you go again, as you guide it back. The relationship has changed from one of conflict to one of stewardship. This is the sustainable rhythm, not of never falling, but of knowing with absolute certainty how to rise. You are not trying to create a life without storms. You are building a boat that can sail through them, with you as the steady captain at the helm, your hand on the tiller of your attention. So, what now? You take this sense with you. You let it guide your days. When you sit down to work, you will naturally seek the single point. When you are with someone you love, you will instinctively put the world away. When you are lost in worry, you will know to find your anchor in the feel of your own breath. You will fail. Beautifully, humanly, you will fail. You will have days where the noise wins, where you feel shallow and scattered. On those days, the discipline is simply this: kindness. No dramatic story of failure, no guilt. Just the observation, I am scattered today, and the next single kind action. Maybe that action is closing your eyes for 1 minute. Maybe it's writing down the 3 things cluttering your mind. Maybe it's deciding that today is a wash and the only goal is to be gently present for whatever comes. That kindness is depth. It is depth of compassion directed at your own human experience. This journey does not end. It deepens. You are not crossing a finish line. You are tuning an instrument, the instrument of your own consciousness, to play the complex, beautiful, and unique song of your life with more clarity, more resonance, and more truth. You have the tuning fork. It is the quiet you have cultivated inside. You can strike it at any moment and listen for the pure tone that tells you you are here. You are whole. You are deep. Go forward, into the noise, the work, the love, the chaos, the quiet. Go with your new sense. Go with your gentle courage. Go with your quiet power. The world needs not more people who can do everything, but more people who can do the right thing with all their heart, mind, and soul. It needs people of depth. It needs you. So, begin. Again. Now.